Are you currently on the keto diet interested in transitioning to carnivore? In this video, I will go over a 4-step process that you can take to start this transition. Hey friends, welcome back to our channel. If you're new here, I'm Alice, and together with my husband, we've lost a total of 90 pounds together, 60 of those being on the keto carnivore diet. During this process, we have just seen significant benefits to our mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual health. Before we get into this 4-step transition process, I'd really appreciate it if you could give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. It really allows us to help as many people as possible with our message. Turn on the notification bell so you can be notified anytime we have a new video or recipe. Okay, so the 4 steps we are going over today are as follows. Step 1 is to get rid of all of your dirty keto foods or keto snacks. Step 2 is to start eliminating veggies and clean keto foods. Step 3 is to experiment and adjust food volumes and types. And step 4 is a decision point, whether you want to break up or get married with this diet. Starting with step 1, getting rid of all your dirty keto foods or keto snacks. Now, whether or not this step applies to you depends on how dirty or clean keto you've been, but assuming you have been doing some dirty keto, which usually means eating out at fast food restaurants and having some keto treats like keto bread, keto bars, keto protein powders, or anything made with almond flour or coconut flour, the first step is to start getting rid of some of those foods. Remember, the end goal of carnivore is just to eat meat and nutrient-dense animal products. So starting by eliminating the processed foods and seed oils is the best way to go, in my opinion. Now, if you've been doing clean keto and mainly eating whole foods already, which is usually mostly vegetables, meat, avocados, and nuts, then you can skip straight to step 2. Now, depending on how easygoing or aggressive you want to be with this step, this can take anywhere from a couple days to 2 weeks. I personally think that doing it over a period of 1 week is reasonable, and typically this transition won't lead to any sort of intense withdrawal systems like keto flu or anything like coming off the standard American diet does. But if you've always been a snacker or somebody who's had a sweet tooth and you still find yourself reaching for those keto sweets regularly, I would say that kicking the habit can be a little bit difficult. The goal of this step is to get the body used to eating as much real food as possible and nutrient-dense foods. So if you're still eating things like avocado and nuts during step 1, I'd say that is fine, but try your best to limit processed foods and seed oils as much as possible. Step 2 is to start eliminating the veggies and clean keto foods. So now that most of your processed foods have been eliminated from your diet, you're basically eating more like a ketovore. Now, there's no hard and fast rule or definition for what a ketovore is or a keto carnivore is. This is kind of like that gray area between keto and carnivore. I've seen some people say they're ketovore and basically lean more carnivore with very minimal vegetables, and some people say they're ketovore and lean more keto. But when you're in this step, I would just mostly stick to things like meats and veggies, maybe small amounts of things like nuts and avocados, and over time, see how your body feels eating fewer and fewer veggies. So if you were eating, say, 10 cups of salad on keto, then I would start scaling it back slowly, maybe by 25% a week, replacing that part with meat so your gut and your mind have time to adjust. The more vegetables you are eating, the longer this transition might take. Some people have no problem cutting out fiber and they actually see an improvement in their digestive system, especially if they've had bloating or GI issues in the past. But for other people, they will experience digestive upset, particularly constipation or even diarrhea. Some people can't get over the constipation and they have to go back to keto. Now, generally speaking, you will poop less on the carnivore diet. At least that's what Kevin and I experienced. And that's because carnivore is a low residue diet, which means that your body is basically absorbing everything that you eat and there's very little to no waste produced. And this is even more so once you cut out the fiber out of your diet. If you feel very backed up and uncomfortable, you may want to try upping the fat and adding some additional butter to your meat. Fat does help with digestion. Now, depending on how many vegetables you were eating before, this stage will probably take a couple weeks as well. Similar to the first step, how aggressive you want to be really just depends on your own preferences. Step 3 is to adjust your food volume as needed. Now, by the time you get to step 3, you should just be eating fully meat, fish, dairy, and eggs. If you are choosing to do a very strict elimination diet, then you can just do beef and eggs as well. This step really is all about listening to your own body. And yes, it is quite experimental, but you basically just adjust how much you are eating based on satiety. If you are still hungry, then you eat more. The goal here is to understand that you are not trying to deprive yourself. If you feel like you have a hard time getting all the food down, then eat less. If you're wondering how much meat to eat on a carnivore diet, we do have another video on this topic. We will link it up top, and we will also leave a link in the description below. But as a general rule of thumb, we recommend starting with 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. So if your ideal body weight is 130 pounds, then I would try to aim for 130 grams of protein. And if your ideal body weight is 150 pounds, then I would go for 150 grams of protein. Another rule of thumb is that 1 pound of meat approximately has 100 grams of protein. This is just an average, of course. It depends on the type of cut that you're eating, but over time, we found that this to be the case. Do check out our video where Kevin goes into detail on how to calculate your meat intake. So if you're allowing yourself some dairy, fish, or any meat that isn't beef, then I would also try consuming some different types of meat and different cuts of meat at this stage, such as chicken, pork, and see how you feel and what your results are. Some people do okay with chicken and pork and some don't. It does depend on your goals and your health and what type of issues you're trying to solve. And also at this stage, it's not just about how you feel, but how realistic it is for you to cook and prepare these foods. I always recommend the air fryer for convenience. It just makes everything very quickly. Ruminant animals, and specifically beef, are always recommended on this diet, but you don't necessarily have to be limited to just red meat. There are a lot of different types of carnivores out there. Some people are just beef, water, and salt. Some people are on the lion diet. Some are strict carnivores. Some are relaxed carnivores, which means that they allow themselves some more condiments and sauces, and some even eat meat and fruit. So during this stage, you can also experiment with intermittent fasting if you choose. Fasting is a very effective method for fat loss. If you've never fasted before, I recommend starting with 16-8, which means that you're eating 2 to 3 meals a day and gradually moving down to OMAD if you can. Intermittent fasting is a whole topic on its own. Let us know in the comments below if you want us to make more videos about this topic in the future. Now, another thing you may want to experiment with are organs, specifically liver. Now, this is another one of those controversial topics in the carnivore space. Do you need organs? Do you not need organs? How much do you need if you do need them? And if you don't need them, do you need to supplement? So for Kevin and I, we personally don't eat organs, and we haven't had any issues with how we feel. To be honest, neither of us really enjoy eating organs. Neither of us grew up eating them anyway, and to be honest, whenever I see them at the grocery store, especially liver, it kind of just makes me want to gag. So for now, they're a hard no, but maybe in the future, we may be more open to them. Okay, now moving on to step 4, you are at the decision point. Now it takes at least 4 weeks to get to step 4, depending on how conservative or aggressive you were with this transition. And once you get here, it's really more of a decision point, I would say, rather than a step. But basically this step is for you to decide whether this diet is for you and how long it's going to be for you. You may have already seen some initial baby results on this diet compared to keto, which is incredible. Now it's all about deciding whether you're going to stick with carnivore and how often you're going to stick with it. Now this is also when you decide whether you're going to be a long hauler like myself and Kevin, or whether you're just going to be doing this for a short period of time. Are you going to marry carnivore and do it for the rest of your life? Are you going to do carnivore for 30-day sprints? Are you going to eat carnivore 3 times a week? Or maybe you've tried it and you're never going to do carnivore ever again. You're just going to go back to keto. Now, if you've lost a few pounds like most people will and you want to keep going, again, that's amazing. Some people can't get past the feeling of not having big poops every day and they prefer to go back to keto, and I think that's totally fine too. As much as Kevin and I are big advocates of this diet, we've seen a lot of healing and a lot of great results from it. We do also understand that not everyone's body responds the same way, and this diet just might not be for everyone. This kind of brings me to my next point, which is that carnivore isn't a cult. Now, there are all sorts of people on the internet nowadays, and some of them really like to put labels on things. Some people will say that if you eat a bite of vegetables and fruit, then you are no longer a carnivore. But labels are just labels, right? The whole point of the carnivore diet is improving your health, not belonging to a certain label. If you still want to eat some vegetables and small amounts of fruit, but incorporate carnivore concepts into your diet, please feel free to go ahead. If you want to do carnivore once a week, like how some people do meatless Mondays, or maybe you want to do carnivore on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, like how some people are vegetarian on those days, or how some people do low carb during the week and then they eat regularly on the weekend, which isn't really keto anymore because you'd be breaking ketosis, but that's not really the point. My point is that the world is your oyster and there is absolutely no judgment on how you choose to incorporate the carnivore diet in your life. My tip here is just don't fall into like the trap of feeling like, oh, carnivore isn't for me, if you don't feel comfortable eliminating all vegetables and fruits for the rest of your life. At the end of the day, day, the real idea here is that we can all benefit from eating more meat, more nutrient-dense foods, less processed foods, and less seed oils. The decision you make should be based on how you feel physically, financially, emotionally, and spiritually from being on this diet. And of course, whether there is any congruence between how you feel and what your health and weight loss goals are. Now, I think our general philosophy when it comes to low-carb diets is that it is all about experimenting with your body to see what works. Some people just do better on keto and some just do better on carnivore. There is no right or wrong or what's better. We advocate for either option as long as you're choosing to the one that you can actually stick to and the one that makes you feel best. Really, when it comes to any sort of low-carb diet, the one thing we can all agree on and the one common goal is that we are not eating according to the food pyramid or the standard American diet that's loaded with carbs and sugar anymore. By just not eating carbs and sugar, you can absolutely change your life with the way you feel, the way you look, and your overall outlook on health and dieting in general. The degree to which you go low carb is completely up to you and your body, how you feel, and most importantly, whether you can actually sustain the diet in the long run. If you liked my video today, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so that we can spread the message and impact as many lives as possible. Let us know in the comments below whether you are currently doing keto or carnivore and whether you are looking to transition from one to another. Until next time.